Are you a dental hygiene student who's struggling with tooth morphology? Same. Anyways, I'm a dental hygiene student in my 5th semester and I tutor first semester students. Let's talk about it. I'm going to be using this app. It is called BoneBox, but it's on the App Store. It's called Dental Pro. It's owned by BoneBox. So first, let's start out with the easy terminology. Incisal and occlusal. What even is that? I was wondering the same thing. So incisal and occlusal means the biting edge. So occlusal is going to be on the posterior teeth, starting at premolars to molar. Incisal is going to be the incisors, right? The anterior teeth, the biting surfaces of the anterior teeth, from canine to canine. Next up, fossas. Fossas are these little divots in the teeth. Now, when I think of fossa comes from foramen, whatever. That means hole, right? But fossa, I think of a little divot. You're digging a hole, but it's not a hole. It's like you're kind of looking around for fossils, fossa, like you're dusting it off and you're kind of making an indent. That's kind of what a fossa is. And it's just on these little back areas. It's going to be on the occlusal edges of the posterior teeth, but it's more behind the teeth on the incisors. On the incisors, it's going to be called a lingual fossa because they're behind the teeth, so they're lingual. The tongue is licking it. On the premolars, you're going to have a distal lingual and a mesial lingual fossa because they don't have a central, they just have a mesial and a distal. See, mesial and distal. Now on the molars, it's going to be called a distal triangular fossa or a mesial triangular fossa or a central triangular fossa or central fossa. There's the distal, this is the central, and that is the mesial. Facial lobes on anterior teeth. So facial lobes are going to be here. So we have a mesial, labial facial, and distal. Those are the 3 lobes. And then there's one in the back. The one in the back is called a cingulum. This round thing right there. See this round thing? That's a cingulum. I like to think about it, it looks like a microphone and you sing in it, a cingulum, because if you look at it upside down, it kind of looks like a little microphone. And then on the anterior teeth, we have these things called the developmental depressions. Those are going to be here and here. They're the depressions in the tooth that kind of separate those facial lobes. On canines, we have a large cingulum. And then we also have these things called triangular fossas, just like how we talked about in the premolars. They're going to be like here. Also on this canine, we have a thing called a root flute. I don't know if you can tell. Flute literally just means like depression. It's just like a divot into the root. And those are going to be on the mesial and distal sides of the root. Also, fun fact, a lot of the times things are deeper on the distal side of things, or something's going on in the distal of a tooth. Like for instance, the root flute on the distal of this canine is deeper. Another thing about the canine is you see how it kind of divots out to the distal a little bit? That's called a distal bulge. But you see how it kind of sticks out more? That's nice. So on anterior teeth, we had the developmental depressions or facial lobes. But on molars, we have this thing called the developmental groove or the lingual groove. They're just grooves that happen from the developmental, which the developmental grooves are going to be like these things that go and separate the lobes or the cusps. Like this would be a facial groove, distal lingual groove, and lingual groove. And heck, we got a mesial groove right there. We also have these things called supplemental grooves. They are the things that kind of make the tooth look wrinkly. You know? So like we have the developmental grooves here, right? But then we have this, and this. They don't go out on the facial, lingual, mesial, distal surfaces. They stay in the occlusal surface of the tooth. Those are the supplemental. Like supplements, it's like helps more. It's also kind of like pits and fissures kind of thing a little bit too. Like here, and here, and here, and here. And then the grooves, the fissures are like there. And then the supplemental groove, supplemental, and then we have lingual, distal lingual, facial. That's actually a lingual, mesial, facial, distal. Yeah. Marginal ridge, what is that? You know how you talk about, oh, just outline the margins, the outside, the perimeter? It's like a tooth. Just know that the distal of molars is gonna have a short marginal ridge. This is like the surrounding of a tooth, you know what I mean? This would be the marginal ridge of a distal first maxillary molar. Shorter. This is backwards, but it says cervical line. See this? That is the cervical line. This also can be known as the CJ, the cemento-enamel junction, where the cementum meets the enamel. The enamel's on the crown of the tooth, and then the cementum covers the root. So it's the cemento-enamel junction. Junction meaning where things meet. So that cervical line on the distal of a molar is going to be flatter. I didn't draw it flat or straight, but it's flat. Okay, maxillary molars have an oblique ridge. That is going to be this thing right here. It's gonna go from the distal buccal to the mesiolingual. It's kind of going diagonal instead of transverse. It's going diagonal. We do have this right here. That's called the transverse groove. So maxillary teeth are the only ones to have an oblique ridge. Mandibular teeth have transverse ridges. They actually have two, like this one. That is straight across. See how they kind of go like this? Transverse ridges. Premolars also have transverse ridges. Straight across. And then remember, along with the transverse ridges, you also have the triangular fosses. The mesial and distal fosses. Tooth morphology is hard, so I'm not gonna go into too much detail into this video, just a couple little vocab to help it make sense and to visualize what things are. So I hope today helped, and I'll see you later. Good luck studying. Bye.